everybody, welcome to Maruka Wildlife Animal Park and our live feeding of our possums and gliders. We're just going to give it a couple of minutes just to give people a chance to tune in and get started. Now before we get started guys, I'll explain that we do look a little bit different than we usually do here today because we are currently in our nocturnal possum and glider house, which means you and I can see these red lights, but our little gliders here and our ringtail possum can't. So to them it's pitch black dark nighttime in here, which is when these guys are most active because they are nocturnal. And then tonight when you and I all go to bed, the lights in here turn on, so it's more like daytime, and that's when they go to bed as well. So what that means is that when you come to visit them at the park, these guys will actually be active out and about during your visit. Now they can be a little bit elusive, so if you do come to our nocturnal house, the best thing you can do is spend a bit of time in here, let your eyes adjust, keep your eyes out, because they can be quick and they generally are a little bit shy. Now we have 4 squirrel gliders here at the moment. So here we have Romeo, and then we also have joining us, this is Caliban, Puck and Othello just behind the camera at the moment, and points to you if you know where all the names come from. Now these guys are related to sugar gliders, but they are a little bit different, and that's because they are a little bit bigger. Their markings are a little bit different and they live in different areas, but they do look very similar. Now these guys are known as gliders because, hello up there, here we go, because they do have the ability to glide. Now some people seem to think that they can fly. They don't fly, but they can glide a fairly long distance for such a little creature. Now these guys are only weigh anywhere from about 150 to 300 grams at fully grown, but in the right circumstances on a downhill glide, they may glide up to 100 meters. So that's quite a fair way. But generally most glides range from about 20 meters to 50 meters from tree to tree. Now to do that, they have some very special skin membranes that go from foot to foot, and their back feet here. So when they jump, they can spread those legs out, pick up as much air as they can in those little gliding flaps, and then they can glide a fair distance to whichever tree they need to get to next.
We have had a question already asking if they're high on the endangered list.
They are, unfortunately. These guys are considered an endangered species in Victoria, which is very unfortunate. Their numbers are declining quite rapidly. And the biggest threat to these guys is habitat loss. These guys rely on tree hollows to help them breed. So they need old trees and even dead trees to get them those nice places to breed. But also things like cats, dogs and humans are having a huge impact on our little gliders. Now there's a few things that you guys can do to even help our gliders. We don't tend to find them this far south down in Victoria, but we do have sugar gliders, feathertail gliders, and all kinds of other little possums and critters around which you can help out. Simple things, by driving careful at night and keeping your cats indoors, make a very big impact. Unfortunately, of all the animals that come into our wildlife shelter here at Maru, 95% of those animals have either been attacked by a cat or hit by a car, which is very unfortunate. Now, as I was saying, these guys rely on those tree hollows for breeding. So they are a marsupial, just like our kangaroos and things, but they're only a very short pregnancy of only a couple of weeks. And then when they give birth to tiny little jelly bean babies. And those tiny little jelly beans will crawl into mum's pouch for the first 70 days of their life. And then once they're outgrown mum's pouch, what comes next is moving into that tree hollow nest. Now mum will line that tree hollow with plenty of leaves and sticks to make it nice and comfortable. And those little joeys will stay in there for another couple of weeks, up to a month, until they're ready to become independent and find their own food and their own way in the world. Now, squirrel gliders generally head out on their own pretty quickly, Females may stick with the family group, and a family group may consist of maybe one boy and 2 or 3 girls with their young, all living together in a territory. And those little territories will overlap with other gliders, so they'll all live together in a little community. Now, it's very hard to hear on the camera, but if you do come to visit these guys in person, you might get to hear their whispering. So one way they communicate is through little whispers up and around everywhere they go to let each other know what they need to know.
Okay, we've had a couple more questions, one of them being how long can they live?
These guys have very short lifespans of only about 3 to 6 years, but living with us, they may live to about 8 to 10.
And then someone's also asked how many types of gliders there are in Victoria.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know.
Well, which ones you can find down this way?
Down here, you will find your feather-tail gliders, your pygmy possum gliders, your ringtails. That's not a possum, that's not a glider. And your sugar gliders. I might actually research and get back to you on that one in the comments because I can't think off the top of my head how many there actually are. But they are quite common around. Now, they've all disappeared to go clean their faces and have a bit of a tidy up. But what we are feeding them today is a bit of a nectar mix. So these guys, they prefer to eat things like flowers and nectar. So we got some fresh flowers, which they've been nibbling on as well. So they love the nectar, they love the sap and resin out of trees as well. But they'll also supplement their diet with things like insects that they find, crickets, little mealworms, and all kinds of other bugs that they find as well. And they'll eat throughout the day as much as they can find. And now guys, just before we move on to the next animal, if you would like to support the park, you can purchase an annual membership for yourself, which goes to supporting and looking after our animals. But if you already have a membership or you can't access here at the park but would still love to support us, you can purchase a Pay It Forward membership, which will be gifted to a family of the local area who may not be able to come visit the park of their own accord. So we're working with St. Vinny's, the Salvos and Bass Coast Health to identify those families in our local area. So by supporting, you'll also be supporting the park and a local family in need as well. Now, we might head over and say hello to Ashley the ringtail possum. One more hello to Caliban before we go.
Before we go over to Ashley, our possum, someone's just asked if they like fruit.
They do like fruit. Some of their favourites are some of the more sugary fruits like kiwi fruit and grapes and things like that, and a bit of banana. So we've actually got some here today. See if they're interested. Usually what they'll do is they'll pick out their favourite bit and run away with it. So we've got a nice fruit mix here with some different fruits. So there's some orange, some kiwi fruit, some grapes, some corn. There we go, we stole a bit of corn and off we go with it. So in the wild, fruit's a bit harder to find, but it is one of their favourite things to eat as well. Alright, so we're going to head over to Ashley the ringtail possum, who's being a little bit shy at the moment, but hopefully she'll want to come over and say hello. So we're just going to head this way a little bit. So Ashley's just sitting just up there at the moment on the lights at the moment. Now Ashley is a ringtail possum. Now she gets her name from her ringed tail essentially. Now if you live in Victoria, you've probably seen these guys before. You may even have them living in your backyard or in your community. They're very common. And thankfully, unlike our gliders, these guys aren't endangered or facing endangered. They actually do well living in backyards and in our rose gardens because rose petals are one of their favourite things to eat. But unfortunately, habitat fragmentation is having a big impact of these guys. And unfortunately, they do come into our wildlife shelter quite regularly after being orphaned when their mothers have been hit by cars. Now, these guys are a little bit different to our gliders. These guys they do like their nectar, but mostly they are what we call folivores, which means that they like to eat leaf. Now, these guys are one of the few species in Australia that, just like our koalas, love to eat eucalyptus. Now, Ashley's favourite is swamp gum eucalyptus, and she can eat quite a bit of that in a day if she needs to. But she'll also supplement her diet with some flowers, some insects, and maybe some other kinds of leaves and that she finds as well. Now these guys are pretty special for the reason that, well, I think they are anyway, is that they're the only possum species where mum and dad both raise the young together. So they are marsupials, just like, again, like our kangaroos or our koalas. And mum has a very short pregnancy of only about 25 days. At that point, she gives birth to tiny little baby joeys, maybe one or two little joeys, that'll stay in her pouch for about 7 weeks. And then they may move into their nest or their dray. Now these guys, they don't rely on tree hollows like our gliders do. These guys primarily rely on drays that they build themselves. Now those drays may be about the size of a soccer ball, and they're made of sticks and leaves all put together with maybe 1 or 2 entrances to make sure that they can get in and out if a predator comes past. And they'll use that nest to come back to every year. So you may have a possum dray in your garden, you don't even know about it. But those little possums will stay with mum and dad for a little while, who will take turns carrying the little baby around and doing what they need to do to raise it, before sending it out to be independent and having a new joey in the next breeding season.
Okay, we do have another question as well. Would you naturally find possums and gliders in the same area?
Yes, you can. Generally they have their own territories and their own space, but you can find them living in the same areas. You can get some gliders on their way over. And you'll notice she's got some beautiful, I don't know if you can see, she's got some beautiful big eyes to help her see in the dark. Because again, she is nocturnal. She spends most her days asleep and most her nights active. And something really cool is that when they're not utilising that tail for holding on the branches and climbing amongst the trees, she will use that to gather things to build her dray. So sticks and leaves she'll curl up in her tail, almost like a hand, hold on nice and tight, and then use that to build her dray as she grows. Now she's thinking about coming down. She's going to come down once we finish the video, which is usually what she likes to do. Beautiful guys, well thank you very much for tuning in for our live feeding. If you have any questions at all, please put them in the comments. We'll be more than happy to answer them for you. We will be doing one more live feeding next week. Will be our last one before restrictions hopefully begin to ease. And we'll be going back to koalas because we've got little Pepper, our little baby koala joey, out and about, and they're generally our most popular. So tune in next week to revisit our koalas. And again, if you would like to support the park, you can purchase an annual membership for yourself and your family, with funds going directly to support the animals and that here at the park. Or if you already have a membership of your own or you can't come to the park, you can purchase a pay it forward membership. Again, the money will be raised to going towards our animals and helping with their care. But using some local initiatives like St. Vinny's, the Salvos and Bass Coast Health will identify a family in the local area in need, and they will be given the membership to come see the park in a time maybe they wouldn't be able to. All right, thank you very much.